What if I told you that you could get your players to roleplay more, increase emotional investment in your campaign, promote growth in the player characters, and make combat more interesting, all with one tool?
Is it possible to learn this power?
Welcome back to my channel, guys. I'm Bryland. I've been playing and running D&D for over 8 years, and I'm a fantasy writer and world builder, and I like to share D&D lessons that I've learned with you. In my years as a dungeon master, I've stumbled across hundreds of tips and tricks. Some have worked for me, some haven't. But this video, as well as the next two, are about one device that I came up with on my own, and I've used it a number of times in my campaigns, most successfully in my recent one. I call this tip the foil party. This video will cover the foil party on a surface level: what it is, how to use it most effectively, what are the different types, and some objectives that you should have when making one. Part 2 will focus on the individuals that will make up the foil party, with some tips on how to build that group to best counter your PCs. Part 3 will wrap it all up with some suggestions on how to make the foil parties more likable, how to avoid the dreaded DMPC, and other ideas to consider for your own campaign. Now, without further ado, let's get started. In any narrative, a foil is a character who contrasts with another character, typically a character who contrasts with the protagonist, in order to better highlight or differentiate certain qualities of the protagonist. The foil party is something that, in my opinion, every D&D campaign should have. At its core, it's an adventuring party that exists in your world outside of the PCs, occasionally interacting with and challenging them on various levels. In the most basic sense, you're giving a character the chance to grow by contrasting them with another character, and doing this on a larger scale, party to party. Everything else in this video and parts 2 and 3 will expand on this idea. Now, there's an obvious downside to having a foil party. It's a lot of work for the DM. You're essentially creating a group of fully established NPCs. Everything from stats and subclasses, modifiers and magic items, backstory and build. I truly think that the benefits of this tool outweigh that work, and there is good news. First, you don't have to worry about running these characters in combat. I'll tell you why in part 3 of this series. And if you don't want to take the time to build your own foil party, you can have mine. I created the title Typhoons for my current campaign, and you can find them in PDF format on the Center Ring website for just $5. These fully fleshed out characters have everything that you'll need to run them, including personality traits and backstory information that you can include in your campaign or not. Right now, the PDF has them at level 5, but I plan on adding versions of level 10 and 15 in the future. Link in the video description. As you'll see when I get around to doing campaign logs, I've introduced my own foil party in my current campaign to counter the Storm Slayers. These guys have really added to the campaign overall, in more ways than the ones that I mentioned at the start of this video. In the last 3 years since their first appearance, I have become incredibly invested in them as characters, and my players love interacting with them anytime they show up in the story. At the end of each video, I will include a testimony by one of my players as they describe in their own words the impact that the Typhoons have had. On that subject, you shouldn't introduce the foil party just because it's fun, but because they are tools for you to accomplish roleplay or story objectives. By being recurring characters designed specifically to challenge or counter the PCs in some way, you are raising the stakes of roleplay interactions with them already. There's a bunch of potential lessons that you can pack in, and you know your D&D party better than I do, so I'm sure you can figure out the best use of the foils for your game. But here are some objectives that I think you should have in mind at their inception. Okay, don't get mad at me about the first objective, just hear me out. Make the foil party better than the player characters. At first. Use this as a way to show your party ways that they can improve. If you've seen that your party struggles to work together effectively in combat, you can have the foil party have a series of cool combo moves that they execute when working together. Does your party struggle to communicate effectively with NPCs? You can make the foil party smooth talkers, charming as can be, and use them to show your players other styles of communication. Now, remember, one of the key reasons to use a foil party is to promote PC growth. I guarantee that if your party lacks skill in something, and then you show them someone who is better at it, they're going to learn. Keep in mind that you're playing the game with your friends, not against them. This kind of motivation doesn't need to be harsh, and it can be done whether the foil party is friendly to the PCs or not. Long story short, use the foils to show your party of players how they can improve. Then, when they've accomplished that, let them surpass the foil party. This is a narrative milestone that is not only clear, but also incredibly rewarding. Now, Objective 2 might seem like a direct contradiction to the first one, but I promise they can work together. Here's what you want to do. Have the foil party make your players feel better about themselves. An easy way to do this is to have the foil party have been inspired by the player characters in the first place. Oh my gods! I can't believe I'm meeting the Storm Slayers! You guys are such an inspiration! After you guys saved my hometown from that Hydra, my friends and I decided that we would band together and rid the world of evil creatures, just like you have. Can I have your autograph? This technique will make your players feel like the heroes that they are, motivating them to keep up the great work that they've hopefully already been doing, and to be the best versions of themselves in the presence of the foil characters. It doesn't have to detract from the first objective. The two can coexist. Take this example. Let's say that the foil party is so inspired by your PCs and the ways that they dominate against various monsters in combat, and they convince the party to let them shadow them or intern with them in a nearby dungeon. The PCs that you have in this example are level 8, but maybe amongst them is a paladin, a cleric, a fighter, as well as a bard whose instrument of choice is the bagpipes. In other words, not a stealthy party. And the foil party that's with them and completely idolizes them is at level 4, and thus they need some protection. But they are made up of a rogue, a Way of Shadow monk, a ranger who has the Pass Without Trace spell, and a warlock who has the One with Shadow's Invocation. As an average, this level 4 party has like a plus 15 to stealth, or something ridiculous like that. This way, you've completed both tasks. The foils are there to make the PCs feel like heroes, but are also vastly superior in a field that the PCs are lacking. Now, before this video, I've always had my foil parties be at the same level as the PCs, and they advance at the same rate, keeping even. I've never considered having the foil party be significantly lower or higher than the PCs, but I think it could work. Last objective, and I know I've already mentioned this, and I will again before the end of the video, but that's because it's important. Remember that the goal of this tool is not to make enemies for your party to fight or to feel inferior to. You're trying to create a group of people who will challenge the party to better themselves. At the very worst, the foil party could be antagonists, but hopefully they're more akin to friends. Just please keep in mind that you, as a Dungeon Master, are, first and foremost, playing a game with your players, not against them. Knowing now what a foil party is, I'm sure you can see there are a bunch of different ways that you could handle this scenario. When creating this script, I wanted to quantify the different types of party that you can create for your players. I said I've been using this tool for years over various campaigns, but this is the first time that I've actually sat down and attempted to define it. As I've considered what the various categories of foil parties might be, I came up with 4 very basic, intuitive ones. Those are categories based on the foil's relationship to the PCs. I'm sure I could come up with more categories, or different ones or subsections of each, but for the purposes of this video, let's stick to the basics. The first category is the allies. This is a party that is separate from the PCs, but whose goals and intentions are aligned with theirs. The two parties will consider each other friends, trust each other, etc. They may call on each other's aid when certain foes or missions are too much to handle, or ask for advice from each other. This is exactly where the Tidal Typhoons fall in their relationship to the Storm Slayers. When handling a foil party in the Allies category, it is essential to make sure that they have their own stuff going on outside of what's happening to the central characters. Otherwise, what's to stop them from joining the party permanently, or being available to help anytime your party comes across the slightest inconvenience? Remember, we as DMs are trying to avoid playing our own PCs, and need to make sure that the players know that this is a story about them. If we can't regularly separate the allies from the story, we run the risk of having them as constant cast in the campaign. Assuming that you and your players are friends, a friendly party is likely the easiest of the categories to run. Whenever the Typhoons show up unexpectedly, both the players and their characters light up. This is a great feeling for me. It makes me feel incredibly accomplished as a DM and as a storyteller. Category 2 is the competition. This party, while on screen, is not a direct enemy to the PCs, but competes against them in other ways, for recognition, treasure, influence, etc. The two parties can, but don't have to, respect each other, and they don't necessarily have to like each other either. This is a great tool to employ in any competitive setting. Battle arenas are a classic trope in D&D, so maybe instead of a 1v1 fighting ring, as is typical, there could be an arena in a certain city of your world that has team fight matches, and you can pit your party against this well-known group of competitors. Or perhaps a local lord, sovereign, or even deity is in need of a group of adventurers to take care of something for them. They're considering the PCs, but another group is claiming that they can do it better. The goal here is to establish that your player characters aren't the only adventurers in the world, and they're likely not even the best ones. Of all the categories of foil parties, the competition is the one that is going to most likely inspire your PCs to want to be better. If done right, this group is going to spark your adventurers to devote time to extra training, buying new items and armor, and just improving themselves overall, which, as a DM, is exactly what you want, right? The hard part about making a competition party is having them be those sort of neutral antagonists. They're enemies, in a way, but how do you make sure initiative is never rolled? Category 3 is the unpredictable party. This party can be either ally or competitor, depending on the current situation. It's likely that the two groups are friendly with each other, but might not have trust between them. In one scenario, they're working together to take down a foe that neither of them could handle alone, fighting alongside the other party. Next time they see each other, they're both arriving at a lost temple, desperate for the legendary magic item that is said to be at its heart, and it's a race against each other. This is exactly how I imagined the Typhoons when I first created them. I wanted their relationship with the Storm Slayers to be less defined, and depend more on what was at stake at the time. I initially imagined them as a less morally sound group of individuals, a little more mentally unhinged, the standard D&D party. But as I roleplayed them more, and as the characters got to know them better, that fell away, and they became the party that I love today. But the scenario that I mentioned just a moment ago, with the temple and the legendary magic item, that actually happened. And when I first envisioned that setup, my thought was that it truly would be a race to see who could get to the heart of the temple first. That scenario, if you choose to use it, begs the question, how low will each party stoop to hinder the other? Who will stoop the lowest? How will it affect their potential relationship in the future? Obviously, this isn't how it panned out for the Typhoons and the Stormslayers, and the two parties ended up working together. But it's a scenario for you to consider if you want to run an unpredictable foil party. Last category is the enemy. This is actually a style of foil party that I have never attempted before, and my guess is that it would be the most difficult. This is a party whose goals and objectives are a direct contradiction to the player characters, with no preemptive relationship to go off of. As a DM, your biggest challenge running this kind of foil party would be delaying the inevitable fight between the two parties for as long as possible. A great example of this party is the Tomb Takers in Critical Role's Mighty Nine campaign, or Azula, Ty Lee, and May in Book 2 of The Last Airbender, or the Rat Grinders in Fantasy High Junior Year. Once again, if you're a DM running this kind of foil party, you're going to get to a point where you have to play them in combat, which can be difficult. It's likely there's only so much of dealing with the enemy party that your PCs will be able to tolerate before it comes to blows. But as a DM, you may be able to think of ways to circumvent that. Remember, the purpose of this tool is not to give the PCs antagonists, but instead to give them opportunities for growth and learning. I don't want these videos to be too long, so that's all for now. Now you know what a foil party is, what it can accomplish, and a few different ways of doing so. In part 2, I'll tell you about creating a foil party, focusing on them as individuals. What roles can they fill? And I don't mean healer, tank, party face, etc. I'm talking about the fun one, the pitiful one, the coworker, and more. You'll see what I mean in the next video. I'll also give you some ideas of what kind of contrary characters you might want, depending on your party makeup. What kind of foil character would best contrast a cleric, or a ranger, or an artificer? You probably have your own ideas, but I will also be sharing mine. Lastly, we'll talk about a few ways to introduce the foil party to your PC. As promised, this video is going to end with one of my own players sharing in their own words how my use of a foil party has impacted the campaign and their own character. If I haven't convinced you of the power of this tool, maybe they can. I hope that after watching this video, you can see the benefits and are inspired to create your own foil party. I look forward to hearing your ideas and suggestions and how it works in your campaign. Let me know in the comments. Thank you for joining me, and from one DM to another, have a collaborative session.
So, foil parties. I have been privileged to be part of 2 centering campaigns that featured foil parties. And while both were similar in concept, they each had a very different feel and different effect on sort of the playing experience that came with it. And so, this most recent one, the title Typhoons, they really were just a wonderful addition to the campaign. Every time that they made an appearance, it just added this extra level of joy to the session, and it was just always so fun to have them appear and be part of whatever it is that we were getting ourselves into that day. And with them, there was just from the beginning, sort of them starting as these fans and admirers of the Storm Slayers, from their Shine Thief success to sort of being drinking buddies and friends to these just really trusted allies over the years that we had been playing this. And that growth of the 2 adventuring parties sort of connecting was just really fun to sort of watch develop as this went on. And I find it really added this great level of depth to the world that we play in, and just bringing more life to the NPCs that live there. There was definitely good character growth points that came from that relationship as well. Like Antony finding himself as sort of set into that leadership role for the Storm Slayers. They were he was able to, I guess, take examples from the Typhoons, more specifically Albrecht, the leader of the Typhoons, and whether that was through roleplay conversations over some dwarven rum, or observing how he worked with his party and his friends, Antony was able to kind of learn what that leadership can entail, just being able to observe and see that happening. And I think that's probably why Antony always had an affinity for Albrecht over the rest of those Typhoons. That, and I guess the magical prank war with Jared, he lost that. I mean, he lost it before he even started it. There was no competition. In the end, these NPCs honestly just felt like PCs that would make like cameo appearances on occasion. When something happened to them, it kind of felt like something was happening to one of the players at the table, and kind of gave that attachment and sense of, I guess, responsibility and dread and all of those things that come with playing D&D and having your characters and your party. I mean, sure, they were their own adventuring party in the setting, but really it did just kind of feel like they were one of the Storm Slayers at the end of the day. So, love you, Typhoons.
Hey friends, thanks for watching. While this channel is new and currently has limited content, I look forward to adding all of this in the near future. If you liked the t-shirt that I was wearing in this episode, check it out on TeeTurtle. If you want to stay up to date on every video, please go ahead and like and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, you can check out the Center Ring website to purchase my D&D inspired fantasy novels, DM resources, and join our mailing list. Every supporter, sale, and donation makes a difference. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.